Just, can you hear me?
Absolutely.
All right. Just a little bit of background. I'm looking at this whole thing in a little different light than some of the people, especially other planning board members and town board members. I've been involved in zoning in this town for, I don't know, since 1989, on and off. Member of the planning board for 13 years. Experienced quite a lot of situations, small scale site plan reviews. Gone through a lot of training at state level and county level relative to how to deal with projects, site plan reviews especially. So I concentrate on the procedures that we, the planning board members, need to follow. I was brought back onto the planning board about a year and a half ago because of the meltdown of our previous planning board and the fact that this community needed help in regard to planning. My experience, past training, just drove me to start doing some research on this project. And what really baffles me is we have very small projects in this town, very small projects, that have been handled better than this one. BP, the size of your corporation, I'm sure you guys go through this all the time. You must have capabilities to deal with almost any land use regulation or zoning law or anything else globally that you can imagine. For some strange reason, you chose not to be upfront with the planning board and the town board ever on this project. It was a backdoor approach. And I'll just give you some examples of that. There were secret communications, utterly secret communications with leaseholders, potential leaseholders, town officials, planning board officials, who knows who else, years before you applied for this project. Probably some of them were under contract with you before you applied for this project. When you did apply, which was in 2006, your seeker application, your seeker information was vague and incomplete. The noise impact study was questionable and probably biased. There was no plan to mitigate several of the positive environmental impacts, and there still isn't, and there probably never will be. You put pressure on the Jefferson County Industrial Development Agency to cut you a deal on tax deal for this town, to take this town's taxing jurisdictions completely, their authority completely away. It was in 2006 when you applied for this project, and to my knowledge, this planning board has not seen one additional bit of official information from BP relative to modification of that application. I've kept an eye on this project since day one, and that map is the first definitive map I've seen of this project. So your comments about involving the community and so on and so forth just hasn't happened. I was on the Economic Impact Committee. Are you aware that we have an economic impact study that this town did that? Are you familiar with that?
I am familiar with the fact that the St. Lawrence Wind Farm project completed the secret process, including the draft supplemental and final EISs, as well as the Cape Vincent Wind Farm completed the draft EIS.
The town board formed a committee to do an economic impact study of wind development in this town. Are you familiar with that? Are you aware of that?
I'm not familiar with the study.
That's important. You should read it, because the state of New York certainly will want to see it in their evaluation, I would think. Anyway, as part of that process, I went to the BP office to obtain some information so that we could put our study together. They refused to provide the information that I asked for. Just flat refused to provide it. We were handed that yellow map that's been in circulation for 6 years, I guess. It wasn't accurate. Jim Madden told me there's a map in there, it's got some dots on it. You guys figure out where those towers, where those sites are. And he said, by the way, it's not complete or it's not accurate, so it's close. It's about all you're gonna get out of me. So anyway, that's how cooperative BP has been relative to the economic impact study. There's really been no meaningful involvement with BP in this planning board, which is the people you should be dealing with, as opposed to everybody except us, since 2006. There was a point in time when I felt, when I came back on the planning board, that it would be worthwhile to just sit down around one table with our advisors, our consultants, BP, planning board members, to try and put a fence around this thing and figure out where we really are. So I asked, I didn't, but Mr. McSherry asked Peter Gross to consider attending a meeting, a planning meeting, a timeline scheduling meeting. He felt that that wasn't in his best interest to do that. And then to top matters off, you submit a PIP plan to the state of New York that's no better than what I just described. It's a whole bunch of vague, empty information. And they let you know in what, 6 pages of comments as to what they thought about your PIP plan. I guess my point is, if you're going to go to the state of New York for a review, what happens if you fail there? Is it possible you come back to us? If you fail at the state level, will you come back to this planning board for a review?
Again, we think the Article 10 process provides the best opportunity for the project forward. We intend on adhering to the process and providing the information that we need to make it as robust and complete an application as possible.
So you're saying you probably won't come back to us?
I think we have a very valuable project here for this community. The Article 10 process provides an appropriate avenue for pursuing the project, for moving it forward, and we're going to pursue that.
So I don't get an answer to my question. You would not, you either will or will not answer the question. Will you be coming back to this planning board with an application for a wind turbine development project if the state turns you down?
I mean, we can pose hypothetical situations here. The fact is, we have an application that we're working on for a project that we believe provides true benefits both economically and environmentally for the local community and for the state. We are focused on moving forward in that process.
Okay, same problem. Okay, I'll just summarize here. This, needless to say, I'm not sure you really understand. You probably got an idea by looking around this room how enormous this project is to this town. It's a tsunami as far as Cape Vincent is concerned. But I'm not sure you really understand the character and the history and the other key aspects of this community. I really don't think you understand that. Certainly BP doesn't. But just let me tell you some of the impacts that the pressures that have been put on this community in the last 6 years. Families have been torn apart, totally torn apart. Friendships destroyed. Health of individuals impacted. And I could go into detail on that, but there are people in this room I'd rather not hear that. The voters were in turmoil. They did their job. They elected the people they wanted to defeat wind in this community. Our town budgets, it's difficult for this town board to plan due to the expense that has put this town through in getting legal services and other paying other costs associated with what we're going through. Town board has been in an upheaval. It's settled down now, and we have a fabulous town board. planning board went through a meltdown. We have a fabulous planning board now. There are some here that don't like it, but there's a reason why they don't like it. It's because it's a good planning board. We volunteered. We have literally thousands of volunteer hours in this community from people sitting right at these tables to put this thing back together and pick up the pieces and get this town back on track. And we did that. It's been tremendously difficult for local businessmen. If you're pro-wind, you go one place. If you're anti-wind, you go another. And that's the way it is. Poor businessman doesn't know what to do. They don't know what to say. Our organizations have even been impacted by it. You know, some people think, well, gee, if wind comes to town, we're going to get a new clock on the village green, or something's going to get repaired, or we're going to have some work done at the lighthouse. So these people don't know what to think. That's just a few examples of what's going on here, just in case you didn't know. The end result of all this, in my opinion, if you took a vote in this room or in this town right now, there's a total lack of trust of BP. They're just not trusted in this town, based on past experience. We see a new BP here tonight, only because the state of New York demands it. That's why we see a new BP here tonight. But none of this stuff ever happened until tonight. We removed our conflicted and unethical board members. That's all been a result of wind. We had a meltdown on our planning board, all a result of wind. We updated our comprehensive plan. That's something else you should become familiar with if you aren't. All because of wind. We amended our zoning law, all because of wind. The threat of Article X, of you going to Article X, is another disconnect with Cape Vincent. I mean, basically what you're telling us is you know, we just don't intend to abide by what the local community wants. It's just another disconnect. So, as I mentioned, we went through and updated our comp plan and our zoning law. We updated our comp plan because it's what the people in this town want. And it's also what they don't want. It clearly states what they want and what they don't want. And I suggest you become familiar with that. Even though you don't have to abide by it, you know where we're coming from. It'll tell you where we're coming from. We have a zoning law that's based on our comprehensive plan, the way it should be. It's based on scientific fact and expert advice, as previously mentioned. Any fair and unbiased siting board would expect nothing less from BP than what is contained in our comprehensive plan and zoning law. No matter what route you take, that is, if you decide to go Article X and never come back here, I think you should be prepared to know that Cape Vincent is going to defend its local laws and its land use regulations entirely as they're written. That's all I have to say.